From the most complex enterprise applications to the simplest consumer services, all software needs to collect input, usually in the form of text. But filling in forms can be arduous and slow, so how can we use design to make it faster and easier, especially in today's mobile, touch-driven world? To illustrate, let's look at an example of a typical e-commerce form, one that's actually been ported over to mobile. In fact, all of it has been ported over to mobile, including a few things you may find surprising, such as the extension on your mobile number, your daytime fax, and of course it makes sense to take up half the screen with the "I do not agree to buy here" after filling in all that information. So the first lesson we learn from this example is we really need to reduce the effort it takes to collect input from people. We really shouldn't make them work this hard just to buy something from us online. To get more specific, let's look at a couple of these forms in detail. In particular, where we're collecting the buyer's name. Notice the form has three fields for that: a required first name, required last name, and an optional MI, which I guess is middle initial. We can actually drastically simplify this by condensing all these inputs down into just one: full name. Now this does a couple things for us. First of all, it removes these optional fields, which in compound inputs tend to confuse people. Which part is required again? Oh, the first and third, but not the second? The other thing it does is really matches people's expectations. When we think about our names, it's a single entity, not three separate things. You see this in usability testing. When people encounter a first name field, they often get through their entire name before realizing there's two more input fields below. The next thing it does for us is actually allows people to stay on the keys. That is, when they're in input mode, they can just keep typing away until they complete the full set of information we need, instead of tapping through each individual input field to switch. Now the impact of this on name may be small, but consider what happens on a field like phone number. If we look at the same form's request for your phone number, you can see there's 12 fields right here just to collect one piece of information: a way we can call you if something goes wrong with your order. We can do that much more simply by just saying, "Phone number, please." Now you may say, "Oh, well, this company is dealing with businesses. They need extensions." Great, let's support that, but let's not expose it by default so everyone has to consider it. Well, perhaps we need another phone number. Okay, in rare circumstances we might. Again, let's put that behind a link, and in both cases hide irrelevant form controls from people until they need them. Studies have shown that hiding irrelevant form controls results in forms that are faster to complete, have less errors, and generally result in more satisfaction. Now, before you get tempted to condense all your input fields, let's look at a potential counterexample. Moving over to address, there's lots of fields here, and it's true that some can actually be combined. For instance, in the United States, we can actually collect your city and state by grabbing the zip code. When somebody enters their zip code, usually just consisting of a few numbers, we can come back with the potential city and state combos that align with that zip. That cuts down on two input fields, city and state. But it does require people to interact with this drop-down and pick the particular combination that's right for them. On mobile and touch screens, we may actually be better off with a stepper control. Stepper control is better aligned with touch, so all somebody has to do is tap up or down to move between the options. Now, with this under our belt, we may say, hey, what about street address 1 and 2? Maybe those are also ripe to condense and keep people on the keys. So let's bring those together. Now we're down to only 2 input fields, right? Well, here's where a red flag comes up. Remember I mentioned how people think about form inputs in structured entities? Your address is one of those. Faced with a block like this, what do you think people are going to start to do? That's right, enter their entire address before they realize there's a zip code field down below. This set of inputs doesn't match what an address looks like, and thereby people get confused. To see another example, here's that address line 1, 2, and zip code combo on a desktop checkout form. And you can see a little bit of red text here. Let's examine that for a second. After entering your zip code above, you must click to highlight your city-state combination from the display on the left. After selection, the city-state will autofill in the appropriate category. Huh? Anytime you see lots of red text dropped into forms like this, it's usually a sign of an issue. In this case, we're breaking the familiar structure of an address, and people are confused. So while we can make form input faster and easier by condensing inputs and keeping people on the keys, we do have to be very mindful of existing conventions. In the form of phone numbers and names, existing conventions actually allowed us to make things faster and easier. In addresses, those existing conventions were something that we were fighting against when we tried to simplify.